In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a shadow in Photoshop step by step. Whether you're working with text, images, logos, or product photos, adding a shadow can instantly make your design look more professional and realistic. Shadows help create depth, make objects stand out from the background, and give your graphics a much more polished look. The good news is that Photoshop makes this very easy to do, and today, I'll show you two different methods. The first method is the fastest way, using the built-in drop shadow effect, which works great for text, icons, and simple graphics. The second method is a more realistic manual technique that photographers and designers use when editing product images or creating natural ground shadows. By the end of this video, you'll know both techniques, and you can choose the one that fits your project best. If you find this tutorial helpful, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more Photoshop tutorials just like this. All right, let's jump right into Photoshop. First, let's look at the fastest method to create a shadow, which is using the drop shadow layer style. Start by selecting the layer you want to add a shadow to. This could be a text layer, an image, a logo, or even a shape. Just click on that layer inside the Layers panel so it becomes active. Once your layer is selected, go to the bottom of the Layers panel and click the small FX icon. This button opens the layer style effects that Photoshop provides. After clicking the FX icon, a list of effects will appear. From this list, choose Drop Shadow. As soon as you click it, Photoshop will open the Layer Style window, where you can control how the shadow looks. Inside this panel, you'll see several settings that control the appearance of your shadow. The first one is Opacity. Opacity controls how dark the shadow is. If you increase the opacity, the shadow becomes darker and stronger. If you reduce it, the shadow becomes lighter and more subtle. Next is the Angle setting. Angle controls the direction of the light source, which determines where the shadow falls. For example, if the light is coming from the top left, the shadow will appear on the bottom right. You can adjust this angle until the shadow looks natural for your design. Another important setting is Distance. Distance controls how far the shadow appears from the object. Increasing this value pushes the shadow farther away, while lowering it keeps the shadow closer to the object. Then we have the Size slider. Size controls how soft or blurry the shadow edges are. A smaller size creates a sharper shadow, while a larger size creates a softer and more natural-looking shadow. As you adjust these settings, you'll see the changes happening live on your canvas, which makes it easy to fine-tune the effect until it looks perfect. Once you're happy with how the shadow looks, simply click OK. And that's it. Your object now has a shadow applied using Photoshop's drop shadow effect. This method is extremely fast and works great for most graphic design situations. Now let's move on to the second method, which creates a much more realistic shadow. This technique is commonly used for product photos or photo manipulations, where you want the shadow to look like it's naturally sitting on the ground. Start by selecting the object layer that you want to create a shadow for. Once it's selected, duplicate the layer by pressing Ctrl and J on your keyboard. This creates an exact copy of your object layer. Next, press Ctrl and T to open Free Transform. This allows you to reshape and reposition the duplicated layer. Right-click on the transformed layer and choose Distort from the menu. The Distort option lets you stretch and reshape the object freely. Now drag the bottom corners of the duplicated layer outward and downward to flatten it against the ground. This creates the basic shape of the shadow, as if the object is casting it onto the surface. Don't worry if it looks a little harsh at first, because we'll soften it in the next step. Once the shadow shape looks right, go to the top menu and click Filter, then go to Blur and choose Gaussian Blur. Increase the blur amount until the shadow edges become soft and natural. Real shadows are rarely sharp, so adding blur helps sell the realism. After applying the blur, go back to the Layers panel and reduce the opacity of the shadow layer. Usually setting it somewhere between 30% and 50% works well. Lower opacity makes the shadow look more natural and less harsh. You can also slightly reposition the shadow using the Move tool if needed, so it lines up perfectly with the object. And just like that, you've created a realistic ground shadow manually in Photoshop. This method takes a little longer than the drop shadow effect, but it gives you much more control and produces very realistic results, especially for product images and photo edits. And that's how to make shadows in Photoshop using two different methods. If this tutorial helped you, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more Photoshop tips, tricks, and tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.